Data centers are expanding across Texas at a massive scale, not just in Dallas, not just in Austin or San Antonio, across the state. And the sales pitch always sounds the same: jobs, investment, growth. But if these projects need tax breaks, power upgrades, water, land, and long term infrastructure, then the real question is who actually benefits and who ends up paying for it. The scale here matters. Dallas Fort Worth alone is already a 1 gigawatt colocation market, with roughly 700 megawatts under construction and another 3 gigawatts planned, according to the CBRE. That is not normal growth, that's hyperscale growth. And ERCOT, the grid operator for most of Texas, has been warning that its load forecasts are being pushed dramatically higher, with officials saying most of the new load growth reported in 2025 was tied to future data center demand. One ERCOT update said the 2025 reporting cycle included 55 gigawatts of additional data center load supported by officer letters for the year 2030. To put that in perspective, this is no longer just about a few server buildings. This is about a new class of industrial scale demand landing on the Texas grid. And companies are not choosing Texas by accident. The state offers cheap land, major transmission build-out, a business-friendly political climate, and tax policy that can be extremely favorable for data center developers. Under Texas Comptroller rules, a qualifying data center can get a temporary exemption from the 6.25% sales tax on equipment and electricity that are necessary to operate the site. To qualify, a standard project has to be at least 100,000 square feet, commit at least $200 million in capital investment over 5 years, and create at least 20 qualifying jobs in the county. For a large data center project, the threshold rises to 250,000 square feet, at least $500 million in capital investment, at least 40 jobs, and at least 20 megawatts of transmission capacity. And for those large projects, the tax exemption can last 20 years. So when Texas says it wants data centers, it's not saying it quietly, it's saying it through policy. This is where the conversation usually gets blurry. Data centers absolutely bring investment. Construction spending is real. Temporary construction projects are real. But once the building is done, the permanent workforce is often much smaller than the project price tag makes people assume. That mismatch shows up even in the tax rules themselves. A standard qualifying Texas data center only has to create 20 jobs. A large qualifying project only has to create 40. So when a project is described as a $500 million or multi-billion dollar win, it is worth asking how many long-term local jobs come with it, because in many cases, the answer is not hundreds. That does not mean there's no economic value. It means the value is more complicated than it sounds. Now let's get to the part that almost nobody leads with. Incentives are not free. In 2023, the Texas Legislative Budget Board looked at a bill that would broaden data center tax exemptions and estimated a negative impact of $178.9 million to general revenue through the biennium ending in August of 2025. That same fiscal note projected annual state revenue losses rising to $280.6 million in fiscal year 2028, plus losses to cities, counties, transit authorities, and other local governments. That fiscal note was tied to a proposed expansion of the rules, not a statement of what directly exists in the project costs today. But it shows how quickly the financial stakes can grow when Texas expands these exemptions. And remember what those exemptions cover. Not just servers, but cooling systems, electric systems, in some cases electricity itself. So when people ask whether data centers are paying their way, the honest answer is that depends on how you count it. This stops being a niche economic development story the second it touches the grid. ERCOT's long-term forecast says annual energy demands in the region was 461,492 gigawatt hours in 2024 and could reach 1,037,742 gigawatt hours by 2031. That is more than doubling in 7 years. ERCOT has also said the new forecast submitted in 2025 was substantially higher than the year before, and that most of the new reported growth was tied to future data centers. Even if not every proposed project gets built, the planning system is already reacting to the possibility. ERCOT's large load interconnection queue shows just how big this wave is, rising to over 200,000 megawatts by 2030. That does not mean all of it will be built, but it shows how much demand is trying to connect to the system, and that alone is enough to reshape how Texas plans its grid. Now let's talk about water. Not every data center uses water the same way. Some newer facilities use closed-looped or more efficient cooling systems, and that matters. But water does not just disappear from the picture just because the technology improves. U.S. data centers are estimated to consume more than 400 million gallons of water per day overall, and in Texas, estimates suggest data center water usage could reach around 25 billion gallons in a single year, potentially rising to a few percent of total statewide water use by the end of the decade. Texas already has hundreds of data centers, with dozens more on the way. So this is not just about one project in one place, it's a statewide resource issue. This is why smaller communities are paying attention now. San Angelo is one example, where a proposed data center site has already been approved for zoning changes. But this is happening across Texas, not just in one city. What starts in major metro areas eventually expands outward to places with cheaper land and available infrastructure. So even if you do not live in a major city, this still affects you. Because the next data center debate might not happen downtown. It might happen near farmland, near a reservoir, or just outside a smaller town. So who really pays for data centers in Texas? Companies invest billions to build them. That part's true. But taxpayers can pay through exemptions. Utility and rate structures can be affected by new demand. Communities can pay through land use, water pressure, infrastructure strain. And the state pays by having to redesign its entire planning system around this surge in demand. So the better question may not be whether data centers are good or bad. It's whether Texas has built the rules to make sure the benefits are broad enough and the costs are clear enough to justify how fast it's growing. Because if not, then Texas is not just building a cloud. It's quietly absorbing the cost of it. Data centers are becoming essential infrastructure. But essential for who? Profitable for who? And costly for who are not the same question. And in Texas, those questions are only getting bigger. If you enjoyed this in-depth video on data centers, you'll enjoy the video on screen. Like and subscribe for more.